happen.
But we got our guacamole, we got our power snacks, we got
our Red Bull.
We got our Red Bull. He has the Red Bull.
I have a Red Bull right here.
Yeah, Red Bull girl. There we go. Love it.
Well, whatever gets you through. We have what?
We're in the final. Actually, we're in the final countdown. Yes, final 10.5 hours.
10.5 hours.
Wow, that's
It has to fly by, guys.
Before you know it.
Oh yeah, well, I feel like the morning just kind of flew by really quick.
That's because you napped for 2 hours.
I napped for an hour and a half.
You were a zombie for a half hour.
In like 78 hours, like 48 hours. Okay, so I take the hour and a half.
That's crazy. So you guys are staying awake just the whole 3 days?
No, not 3 days.
Not 3 days.
Just 27 hours, straight from midnight East Coast last night till 2 p.m. 2 a.m. tonight, which will be midnight on the West Coast. So 27 hours.
Still.
Yeah, so I woke up at like 7 on Friday morning, and I've slept for an hour and a half since.
Yeah, we're running on all about 2 days straight for the most part.
Yeah. So I want to go ahead and get you introduced because I'm really interested in this topic, like how I use Instagram to take my nonprofit global.
We want to hear about this.
Yes.
We want to hear about this.
Well,
yay! I'm excited to tell you about it.
I'm a big nonprofit supporter. Like we had a nonprofit panel speak last year about how they marketed themselves and get themselves out there, and we got a lot of feedback back from nonprofits about how that really helped them figure out how to get themselves positioned, because as you know, like, they're working on no money. They're a nonprofit for a reason. So I'm gonna get you
that well.
I saw you were a Phi Beta Kappa.
Yes, I am. I was just inducted a few months ago.
Nice. I'm a Phi Theta Kappa, so a little different.
Yeah.
So Phi Theta Kappa goes off GPA and all this other stuff. So it's kind of exciting, but it's fun. So you were recently featured in Forbes and Entrepreneur. You are an author of a book, which woohoo, good for you, because that's hard altogether. Scott, are you dropping all the papers?
I'm good. Just drop one. Down.
So your book is called Her Big Idea, and you're actually a top 3 bestseller in Women in Business. So that's very exciting. So I'll let you take it away. Tell us first, let's expand some more on your book, on who you are, like what your nonprofit is. And
well, I have a presentation, so I'm going to share my screen really quickly.
All right, go right ahead.
Awesome.
I love that you have a presentation.
Oh yes, very organized. Let's get this show on the road. Okay, so you can see everything?
I can.
Cool, because I can't see you guys. So yeah, here's my presentation, how I use Instagram to take my nonprofit global. So yeah, here's me. Took this little picture to promote you guys yesterday. And so I just graduated from Brown in May, the Phi Beta Kappa thing, and I studied gender studies and entrepreneurship. And at Brown, I also started the first ever women's entrepreneurship incubator, and that was really inspired by my nonprofit experience, which, as you'll see, was really magnetized by social media. And I just published my second book called Her Big Idea. It came out on June 11th, debuted as a top 3 women in business bestseller, and that's also about my entrepreneurial experience and how I believe that we all have the capacity to bring an idea to life, no matter how big the idea is. If the idea finds us, we're the ones with the responsibility, the privilege to bring it to life if we so choose. So really my life mission is to bring more women to the forefront of entrepreneurship, have them see that it's a viable path for them, and help them bring those ideas to life. But where it all began. So when I was 18 years old, I had just finished my freshman year of college, and I was obsessed with this idea to start a nonprofit that donated books internationally. And I had been an avid book lover my entire life. So I wanted to be donating books to girls who were my age when I was younger. So think about like middle school, high school age. And I wanted them to be books of really, really powerful messaging. So like inspirational messages, empowering messages, things where it really makes them think. And I wanted them to be reading these books in book clubs and chapters. So I was donating, the first book I was donating was I Am Malala, amazing, amazing book. And I wrote a curriculum to go along with the book. So as the girls were going through the book, they were reading questions at the end of each chapter that they were all able to go through together. And it was really imitating the book club format that we often see like with older women, like that movie Book Club that just came out. You see like women in their 60s, and you don't really see like book clubs for younger girls. So that was the intention, but I really wanted it to be international. That was like really my big idea there. But I had to start somewhere. So to prove the concept, to make sure it worked, to get some feedback, chapters were started in Georgia. You'll see on the right, those are the girls in Georgia. And then down here on the left, at Colorado State University, one of my friends started a chapter just to test out like the different age ranges, make sure the book was a good fit. But really, I just felt super stuck because, like, as I said, my original intention was to go global. But I was 18. I had no idea what I was doing, just starting out. And I didn't know how to make the global connections. Like, of course, I could reach out to schools maybe, but then how would I choose the country? And really, like, what I wanted to do through the books and the chapters was to empower each girl that was leading a chapter to be a leader in her community and to see what it was like to bring girls together and to have these conversations. And I didn't really know if like a school administration was going to be able to do that in the right way, but I also felt lost as to how to find the girls to connect with internationally, to find the books to donate. So this was also, so flash forward a year. I was the end of my sophomore year of college now, and serendipitously, I was really into Instagram at this time. My personal account was growing exponentially out of nowhere. And I was really enjoying like using hashtags, doing photography, like connecting with other people on Instagram. And I had a thought, like, if this is working so well for my personal Instagram, then imagine how much it can grow Lit Without Limits. So one night, I was sitting in the student government office and I started looking up hashtags like bookworm, book lover, books, and found millions and millions and millions of posts. And all the girls were younger than me, and all of them were posting about their favorite books and talking about them and recommending books to each other. And they all had this hashtag Bookstagram. And I had no idea, but I had tapped into this like other world of Instagram that I had no idea existed. That was really just like the prime audience that I was looking for, these younger girls from all around the world coming together to inspire each other and essentially having like an online book club, an online version of Lit Without Limits. So yeah, these women had thousands of followers. First of all, like it wasn't just like in the hundreds, this obvious love for books, networking, and women's empowerment. And something else I thought was really strange and serendipitous was they all had email addresses in their bios. So I knew that they were all open to collaboration. I didn't just have to DM them, even though that obviously would have been like a fair way to go about it. And so that night I went ahead and whipped together the ambassador program. It was just like a little shell of an idea, but I started to develop out what I wanted it to look like. And essentially I just wanted the girls to represent Lit Without Limits in their communities and on Instagram. And I sent the program and like a description about what I was doing and what it would entail to, I think, like over 200 girls on Instagram, found their email addresses, scheduled them all to go out the next morning. I guess I thought by sending like over 200 emails, I'm like, well, like maybe a few will reply. But by the next morning, dozens and dozens and dozens of girls had responded. And before I knew it, this whole movement had started. So something that I asked the girls to do was when they decided to come on board, to share a post and to say, like, I'm now an ambassador for Lit Without Limits. So these are just a few of the posts. And that really was able to inspire more of the movement because then everybody else was hearing about it. They were like, what is this? And since the Bookstagram community was so tight-knit, more and more people were reaching out to me, asking how they could get involved as well. And so, yeah, this whole movement had begun. So something that I thought was really cool was that Bookstagram in general had all these monthly challenges where they would say, like, on the second of the month, do your favorite books by, on the third month, book and food. And they made these Lit Without Limits challenges. And they said, come read with us, which I thought was really amazing. And so they did one for May, they did one for June. So this was content that I wasn't even creating, that was helping my mission. And that also resulted in hundreds and hundreds of posts. It was really cool to see every single day what they were responding to, what they were putting for each different prompt. And what I would do is I would reward it with exposure on the official Lit Without Limits account. So because everybody was posting about Lit Without Limits, everybody was following Lit Without Limits. And so then I would choose my favorite from every day of the challenge and I'd put it on the account, and that also incentivized the girls to make sure that they were posting because they could be featured on the account. Then we started monthly book clubs. So in July, we had Wild by Cheryl Strayed. And so here are pictures, like the girls would go out and get the books themselves. You see like the bottom left here, that's like the perfect picture of Wild in the Pacific Northwest. And everyone would start reading the book together and we talk about it online. Same in August. My favorite book ever, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, was the book. And what I started to realize was that this intention to donate books and have it in person and everybody talking about the meaning and everybody connecting over it, all of a sudden it was happening on Instagram. So it's not like I even had to raise the money or donate the books or go through any of that or find like 10 girls in one country. It could be girls from all over the world. And we had girls in Italy and Canada and China and Pakistan and the Philippines. And what the movement really resulted in is all this exposure that I wasn't expecting. So I was on a magazine cover, which was really cool, probably the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. And then cute things started happening, like on the left here, these girls in Canada, unbeknownst to me, had a bake sale for Lit Without Limits. And I didn't even know about it until they posted on Instagram and said they were having one that day. And then they sent Lit Without Limits a PayPal for the money to raise the money for the books. On the right here, we partnered with a girl power company called Every Ella. And yeah, they raised money for us as well. And so all of a sudden, not only did I have all these connections internationally and all these girls behind the mission and proving to me that it was a worthwhile mission, but I had the money to go ahead and do my first international donation finally. So here's me after I ordered all the books. On the left here, you'll see I wrote down in every book, "You are without limits." And I'd write the name of each girl because I received the names of the girls ahead of time. Sometimes their addresses, because some of them had to come together via Skype in the Philippines where they didn't live close enough to each other. And I finally had my first international shipment. So on the left, this is Ina from the Philippines. She was one of the ambassadors. And on the right, this is from Pakistan, one of my ambassadors, Maria. So they finally got their books. Of course, like international shipping, super expensive, takes forever. But I was able to communicate with them the whole time and then be there for them as they started the chapters. And of course, they were sharing their journeys on Bookstagram. So everyone else was hearing about it too. The coolest thing I think happened from all of this was that then the Pakistan chapter and the Philippines chapter of Lit Without Limits declared themselves sister chapters. So these were girls that obviously had never met before, maybe would have never met, but they came together over this central mission, and they both loved what they were doing. They both felt empowered as leaders in their community. And on top of that, not only were they just focused on their one area in their hometown, but they decided to come together and be sister chapters. And I thought that was really, really incredible, something I never would have even intended to begin with or thought was possible, and my favorite story to tell from the Lit Without Limits experience. So I started to think through how to imitate this because it was kind of a perfect storm of circumstances. Obviously, I had no idea how it would go a little bit viral and start a movement. But what I realized is that, first of all, I tapped into a need. And it was my own need when I was younger. I would spend my summers with my head in a book and spending that time alone. And I didn't really talk about the books with anybody my age. It's not like we chose book. I mean, just as I said, like book clubs, you think typically of older women. Find a movement that lacks direction or one central voice. I didn't really have a competitor in the space. Bookstagram was this community, but there wasn't really one central manager of that community. There wasn't somebody who was calling the shots of which book to do next. Also, give more than you ask for. So yeah, I was asking these girls to represent Lit Without Limits, but I was also giving them autonomy and leadership. I was giving them something they could put on their resume. I was giving them book recommendations. I was giving them friends. And I loved the make others feel appreciated for what they give. So I was always hyping them on the social media. I started a Lit Without Limits blog. You'll see upper right. So they were able to write, because typically if you love to write, if you love to read, you love to write. So they were writing about their experiences, which made them feel good. And then also, as I would put them on Instagram, we also did an ambassador series. So I'd promote each individual ambassador on Instagram and share their bios. And I also let my voice shine through. So also down here in the bottom right is a picture of my dog, Ollie. And I had a picture of him reading the book. And I always wanted my personality to come through. I wanted them to know me as Haley instead of the entity of Lit Without Limits, and to inspire them through that as well. So here are some of the pictures of the ambassadors. In the middle here is a picture that one of the ambassadors made for me, where they put all their favorite books together and put the Lit Without Limits website in the back. And the biggest thing that I learned from this, and even putting together this presentation, because I haven't thought about the ambassador program in a while, just remembering that like we so often think that social media is superficial, and believe me, I know that it can be, but it also has the capacity to change so many lives, like change so many lives. Like none of these girls are the same, and now that they've been these ambassadors in their community, and they've learned that they can do it, and they can be leaders, and they've met each other. And of everyone, I certainly changed the most. You know, I was young, I didn't know what I was doing, and thanks to Instagram, I was able to put out my message and have it resonate and become a leader in more ways than I even thought possible, just via Instagram. So thank you for letting me share my story. I think I blew through that pretty fast, but I also just wanted to say, let's connect. So here's me with my book, and I talk a lot about the story of starting Lit Without Limits in whole in the book. There's my email, my Instagram, and my Twitter. And then I also am the director of community for Next Gen, as I said. And so if anyone who's watching loves entrepreneurship as much as I do, we are the premier entrepreneurship community and would love to give you all the resources that you need to succeed and potentially imitate this. So yeah.
I have to agree with you on Next Gen. Like that community,
Yes.
the community really came and supported us, and we were overwhelmed by responses. And you were one of them. So
I was.
you emailed in, but your story gave me goosebumps. Like it's just great. It's heartfelt. It's a prime example of how social media can be not superficial, not cat photos, not, oh, here's how to do my hair, but here's what I've done for girls in other countries to build a community where they can be themselves and discover new things. Like, that's amazing. So a round of applause for you. Wait for it. So Scott has these little noisemaker boxes. And one of them is a nice round of applause.
Oh, it sounds like you're like shaking a box of M&Ms.
Oh, I hear shaking. Oh, it didn't come through very well.
That's all right.
That's okay, but it was a nice round of applause for you. So
Haley, what's next for you? What's next on what you're working on, you know?
Yeah, well, so I work for Next Gen, which is a dream job, obviously. So I get to help all these entrepreneurs who are just like me and learn from them. But I also launched my book, Her Big Idea, in conjunction with a fund in partnership with Brown University's Nelson Center for Entrepreneurship. So the idea is that half of the proceeds from the book go to the fund, and then girls can apply to the fund with their big ideas to receive grants to bring those ideas to life and to mitigate risk taking. So it's more of a fun than a nonprofit, but I'm always thinking it's like my second nonprofit, and I'm returning to the service aspect. And so it's fun.
I love that you're thinking of a second nonprofit. I like that. That is awesome.
I'm a little bit of a serial entrepreneur. I have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, we understand completely.
Yeah, totally.
Caroline on the comment says very inspiring and multiple hand claps for you.
Aww.
So we definitely have some women on here that love your story. Please be sure to comment in the comments below your info so they can come in and tag you, talk to you, follow you. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, I love the fact that you started a movement, and then a movement within your movement took place with the two groups becoming sister, you know, in Philippines and Pakistan. Have you seen it happen with other cities, other areas throughout it?
No, so actually it's like kind of sad, but I stopped after that. It just became way too much. I actually had hired like a director to oversee the ambassadors because we had like nearly 100, and that's way too much to manage. But that was right when I was transferring to Brown, and I just needed to like focus on me for a second. But I've been thinking about bringing it back and incorporating Her Big Idea. So not only am I encouraging them to be leaders, but entrepreneurs and bring their ideas to life. Not necessarily in the form of companies, but in the form of like initiatives. So,
well, you know, that could be their first book that they read.
Saying that, yep, that would be awesome. Keep it posted.
Started on the right track. So, So let's talk about your social media for a minute, because you talked about your personal profiles, and then you talked about actually creating the brand profile. So how do you manage the two together in relation to the brand and who you are and what you do? Like, we get a lot of questions from business owners of, do I do my personal page? I have my business page now. Do I even need a personal page anymore? Like, which one do I work and how do I leverage them? How have you managed to kind of balance that and be you?
That's a really good question. I think the two feed into each other. So what I'd always do is I would tag Lit Without Limits on my personal account, especially when I was doing something in relation to Lit Without Limits that day, or I had like, it also showed kind of behind the scenes, like what it was like to be the CEO of Lit Without Limits and be managing it. So if I was speaking at something that day, I did a lot of speaking gigs, I'd say like, spoke about Lit Without Limits and pass it on that way. And on the Lit Without Limits side, it was pretty clear that the social media account was run by me. But I really tried to keep it like its own separate entity, but also be really accessible as me. I think that your personal account in general, like think about what your friends want to see. And I don't think that all the time your friends and your career should interlap. So I know my friends just want to see like what I'm up to when I'm on vacation. And so that's like all on the personal account side. But because like my businesses and the things that I start and the things I'm a part of are a big part of my life, I also make sure to give that a big shout out on my personal Instagram. So the two feed into each other, if that makes sense.
So what do your friends think about your book club? Are they part of it too?
Yeah, well, so one of the girls who's one of my really good friends, she's one that started it at CSU. But all my friends are really supportive of my most recent book. They've all just purchased it. It just came out, recently. And something exciting is that one of the friends who I met online, she has a community called Boss Babe, over like 1,500 female entrepreneurs, and they're going to use that as their book club book for July.
So Boss Babes or Boss Babes ATX?
Boss Babe.
Okay, because there's two different groups actually. Texas has a Boss Babes here in Austin, and they grew really quickly. And then there's Boss Babe out of New York. So that's really neat. I'd really like to get you connected with the Boss Babes here in Texas.
Thank you.
I would love that.
Sounds like right up my alley.
Yeah, it does. Plus, I might selfishly get you to Austin so you can hang out.
I keep hearing about Austin. It's really hot right now, especially for the entrepreneurial scene. So,
well, it's hot in general. So it's like 104 today or something like that. I don't know. I'm inside, so luckily.
You're complaining about this being the coldest room in Texas.
It is the coldest room in Texas. There is nothing like summer, winter in Texas. You just have no idea. It's where it becomes winter inside the office building because it's so hot outside.
Gotta counteract it somehow.
I know, but then all of us are shivering in the corner with a blanket. You can't turn it off, you'll get hot.
Does it what is the weather like in the winter there though?
So Texas, it really doesn't technically get cold until January or February. Really.
We might have one icy day.
Maybe.
One icy day, a little bit of snow that lasts a half a day, then and melts off.
Yeah, so we haven't had very much of a big winter in a little bit, but it does ice over occasionally. But I would say my last Christmas it was 90 degrees, so
Jeez,
I might as well be on a tropical island.
Yeah, well, being in Colorado, it's like we have all 4 seasons, which is great, but we are like in the blistering heat right now of the summer.
Yeah, it happens. Love Colorado though. So does anybody have any other questions? Let me check the feed here. We got a lot of followers, a lot of people watching. So please send us the information for your book so that we can make sure to send that out to everybody. So we do have text messaging. So if you text message SMDay to 72,000, anybody who signs up, we are sending out the speaker information afterwards so that they can connect with you, look at your stuff, read your book, et cetera, et cetera.
Presentations. I love, one of the things I loved, I think is just unique, is you had the 30-day calendar of something to do each day on Instagram. The color, the spine of the day. I love that aspect because it helped take kind of the creativity out of people's minds of what they had to do to give them something definite to do. And that's a really great thing. You made it easy for them.
Yeah, and they each have their own take on it.
Yep.
No two posts look the same. But again, that's not something the ambassadors came up with that. I didn't come up with that. I had no idea. And so the cool thing about it was these girls have been part of Bookstagram for so long. They knew what worked. They knew what mobilized them as a community. And so they were able to help me out in that way.
Mm-hmm. You're very smart to take the time to find the hashtags and just take the time to find the emails to send it out. A lot of people are like, oh, they'll never email me back. I'm not going to take the time to do it. You didn't take no for an answer. You went and did it. Yeah, you maybe didn't expect the outcome, but the fact that you did it, it wasn't a surprise because you actually took the action to reach out to people that are taking action.
Yeah, you allowed it to happen. You created the catalyst for it. So I'd give yourself some credit for that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps us up. Again, send me all your info, send me your slides. I'd love to show it to the audience. Thank you so much for coming and spending time on your Saturday and speaking with us. I really appreciate it.
Of
And
course.
thank you very much to the Next Gen community. Like, as soon as I reached out to Justin and said, hey, this is what we're doing, he's like, send me details. And I'm putting it in the newsletter. It was like,
Yeah, Haley, we'd love it with us. We're having we're getting so many views on our social media profile. Please keep us up to date what's going on. We'd be glad to share it out to the community, not just today, but obviously year round. So please keep us in mind with that, okay?
Thank you. That means a lot. It was so great to meet you guys, and thank you for this opportunity.
No problem. Thank you for being a part of it.
bye, thanks.
Bye. Try to stay awake.
Somebody's asking, how haven't all three of you not passed out yet? Well, we have not. We are rocking.
All right.
Good.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. All right. So